This week in Texas politics involved big endorsements, big legal face-offs, and another big standoff on the border. Let's get our headlines from our panel, and we'll begin first with Brad Johnson with the Texan News. Brad, what's your headline for the week?
A game of legal chess has broken out in court.
Connie Sweeney with the Highlander. Connie, what's your headline for the week?
Texans get wrangled into more legal battles in the State House and the border.
Political analyst Brian Smith with St. Edward's University. Brian, what's your headline?
Will the Cowboys win a playoff game before Ken Paxton goes to trial?
Speaking of Ken Paxton, the Attorney General issued an interesting declaration on Thursday that he wasn't going to participate anymore in the whistleblower lawsuit against him. Brian, it seems like the Attorney General doesn't like what's going on, so he's acted as judge, jury, victim, the whole shooting match, right?
Yeah, he thinks that his victory in the impeachment trial, the 2022 elections, have emboldened him, so nothing is off the table. He's run out of appeals at the Texas Supreme Court, so he's trying something different to move on. It's the legal version of I'm taking my ball and going home.
Friday morning, the judge in the whistleblower case responded to Paxton's perplexing denial/admission motion by setting deposition dates in February for the Attorney General and several of his top aides. House impeachment manager Andrew Muir, who has taken a lot of heat and is not running for re-election, took a quick victory lap on this. Connie, is Muir vindicated?
There's a possibility he is trying to pick up some points for maybe a future run.
Brad, you and I both talked to whistleblower attorney Tom Nesbitt. He called this move by Paxton a stunt. Could this go for his security fraud charges too? Just saying, yeah, I did it, slap me on my wrist and let's go.
Could be testing the waters on that. Yeah, although that's an entirely different set of circumstances.
You know, the Texas primary is still weeks and weeks away, but the primary season kicked off in Iowa with a big win for former President Donald Trump. Former rival Senator Ted Cruz, after Iowa, endorsed Trump. But Connie, that announcement, did it make any kind of waves there in the Hill Country?
It looks like Senator Cruz is among a growing number of Republicans who are jumping on the Trump train. Even though he took a beating during the 2016 primary, it looks as though these particular political operatives who would be in favor of another Trump presidency are taking some extra steps to show their support. Even here recently, both Senator Cruz and the Senate Majority Leader Steve Scalise had signed on to some documents that would possibly defend Trump's ability or eligibility to be on some of those ballots. But ultimately, it looks like 170 or so Republicans signed on to that. So the more that it appears as though their candidate is not getting a, quote, fair shake, the more it appears they're going to be throwing their support behind him.
You know, Senator Cruz's former chief of staff, current Texas Congressman Chip Roy, has gone all in on the Ron DeSantis campaign. Brian, he has thrown some big grenades at Trump. Can Roy repair any bridges if it is Trump?
Chip Roy had two options after Iowa: double down on DeSantis or kiss the Trump ring. He chose the former. There is a big gulf between Roy and Trump, but it's not an important gulf. If elected, they're going to run in different political circles, different policy circles. The president doesn't rely on a single House member very much as he would with a senator or governor. And as Connie said, rebuilding bridges is possible, and we're seeing Ted Cruz do it.
Now, there is an interesting side note to this Iowa fallout, and that's the Trump camp reportedly has told down-ballot Republicans not to use GOP strategist Jeff Roe or his firm. Roe worked for DeSantis, and his firm also has ties to Senator Cruz and Ken Paxton. Brad, you noticed this. Could this be some bad fallout for those guys?
Could be. It's going to be interesting to follow. Roe resigned from the Never Back Down super PAC, which was DeSantis' super PAC, I think close to the beginning of the year, if not before. And now the Trump campaign is Politico reported as telling people, don't use him. And Axiom, Roe's firm, has a large footprint in Texas. The top ones are Ted Cruz and Ken Paxton. But you look at these House races that's going on, and many of them, especially the challengers to incumbents, are Axiom users. And so does this have any effect? Do they listen? I don't know, probably not, but it'll be interesting to see if there's any trouble in paradise there.
You know, they say revenge is always served cold, and it's cold in Texas right now, right, guys? You know, this is going to be interesting how the revenge primary shakes down. Speaking about threats, the Biden administration has told Governor Greg Abbott to let Border Patrol agents back into that Eagle Pass City Park that the state took over last week. Connie, regardless of how this standoff ends down on the border, Abbott still wins on this. This is a still win-win for him, right?
River buoys, the razor wire, busloads of illegal immigrants being shipped over to sanctuary cities. This is just another one of those items that is being stacked on top of yet more of the legal fight that's going on between the DOJ and the state of Texas. I think what happened down at Eagle Pass kind of was an indication of what's the progression of this kind of battle that's going on. So since there's so many of these things that are happening all at once, it looks like folks out here would like to see possibly the Supreme Court weigh in on who has the jurisdiction and what is the role of Texas in trying to protect the border.
But Brad, right now, does Abbott even care what happens in the courtroom? He's winning the public fight, right?
Yeah, the court battle is going to continue. It's going to be drawn out for a long time. On the PR fight, yeah, you saw them hit back against the reports that Texas officials prevented Border Patrol from getting to drowning migrants in the river. That one came out that they did not prevent the Border Patrol from getting to them before they had already drowned. It's a very sad circumstance, but it seems like he is winning the fight. And you look at what's happening with busing all these migrants to, blue cities, and that he's very much taken the W on.
You know, the budget fight on Capitol Hill just doesn't seem to be winning. The continuing resolution for funding the government went forward without any kind of substantial border measure. Brian, no compromise in sight on this?
No, the border is going to be the status quo. The Democrats don't want to hand the Republicans a big victory on the border by rolling over to those demands. And the Republicans are not going to push policy solutions and lose this campaign issue that's winning for them. So expect increased rhetoric, more visuals and trips to the border, but no real policy solutions.
An interesting move was played out by Texas Congressman Colin Allred, voting Wednesday to condemn President Joe Biden's handling of the southern border. He's running to be the Democrat nominee to take on Senator Ted Cruz, and he immediately got attacked by his leading contender, State Senator Roland Gutierrez. Brad, who scores the bigger points on this one, Allred or Gutierrez?
I think it's kind of a wash. We've seen Allred continuously trying to take that more moderate lane and succeeding, and Gutierrez hitting him from the left. But when you look at the polling numbers, and Gutierrez hasn't broken double digits yet. Allred is around 30, and while there's still a lot of undecideds, that is a huge gap to close. So I don't think it's going to matter for much. I think it's pretty much Allred's to lose at this point.
Connie, is this the fight that breaks through for Gutierrez?
These two Democratic candidates have been in a dogfight as early as October. We started to see first them squaring off on two different sides, and it looks as though they're going to keep going back and forth with the issues and taking opposite sides when it comes to being sides from the Democratic Party. So then again, I think they're trying to separate themselves as the one that would rise above the other to be strong enough to potentially upend Ted Cruz if they go to the general election, but that remains to be seen how the Democrats will vote on that.
You know, Brian, there is the possibility that Gutierrez and Allred could be in a runoff. So is this kind of like sets up for the runoff if there is one?
I don't think Allard's actually scared of a runoff. He's leading in the most recent Emerson polls. With this statement, he's saying he's not frightened by any of his Democratic rivals, and the nomination is his to lose. He's already trying to gear up against Senator Ted Cruz. What he's saying is, people on the left will still vote for me, even if I tack to the center. Now I'm going to take Ted Cruz on head to head.
We learned this week why Governor Greg Abbott may be such a passionate person when it comes to school choice. It was reported that Abbott has received a $6 million campaign contribution last month from a Pennsylvania billionaire who is a top supporter for school choice. Connie, how does that outside money play out in the Hill Country? Does that even matter, or are they just focused on the issue itself?
Well, Rudy, at first glance, the amount of money and the fact that someone is giving Governor Abbott's campaign money to support his policy isn't what raises the eyebrows. It's that it's coming from someone outside of the state. But you do a deeper dive into who Jeff Yaz is and what it is that he's been doing from Pennsylvania, a registered libertarian. He's poured a lot of money, millions of dollars into charter schools in that state. And those charter schools have been deemed successful and also benefiting huge swaths of the minority population in Pennsylvania.
That donation is being described as the single largest donation in Texas history. A lot of that cash is expected to play in a lot of the Republican primaries that Abbott is going after individuals who don't support school choice. So is that noticeable, Brad?
Oh yeah, I think it's the entire sum is line items for these Texas House challenges. You look at Abbott has 2 fundraising accounts. This $6 million plus another $250,000 from Yass was put into one that has been more dormant recently, not the one that's posted these gaudy fundraising numbers. And it's pretty clear that this is all going to go towards these challenges to House Republicans who voted against the governor on that school choice vote.
Brian, dirty money or just politics as usual?
It's just politics as usual. One party's dirty money is another party's free speech. And this 6 million actually overshadows an earlier donation that George Soros had pumped in more than $1 million to Democratic Texas PACs in the second half of 2023. Abbott condemned this, used it in his fundraising memos, so expect the Democrats to do the exact same with the $6 million donations. But in both cases, like Connie said, we're talking about big money from out of state.
Let's wrap up this week with a final word for the week from our panel, and we'll start first with Connie. Connie, what's your word for the week?
Because of that eye-popping donation and also the border battle that's going on between the Border Patrol and the State Guard, I say double take.
Brian, give us a word.
Whistleblowers.
And Brad, give us a word.
Given the fundraising reports coming out, I'm going to go with revealing.
And that is This Week in Texas Politics.